It was almost midnight when Claire heard the knock. She froze, heart pounding. Her daughter, Lily, just 6, was asleep in the bedroom, wrapped in layers to fight the drafty chill. The old space heater buzzed softly. Claire peeked through the peephole. A man stood on the porch, soaked, shivering, and holding a bleeding arm. Behind him, a black car lay skewed in the snowy ditch. She should have called the cops. Should have slammed the door. But something in his eyes, exhaustion, maybe fear, made her pause. "Please," he said. "I crashed. Just need to stay dry until morning." Claire hesitated. She had nothing extra to give. No spare bed. No money. Barely enough food. But kindness? That, she still had. "Okay," she whispered. "One night. Couch only." She gave him a towel, an old sweatshirt, and some lukewarm soup. He barely spoke, just thanked her quietly, and winced as she cleaned his cut. He never gave his full name. Just said, "Matt." Later, when he'd fallen asleep on the couch, Claire sat by the sink, sipping tea made from a reused bag, wondering if she'd made a mistake. But deep down, she knew she hadn't. She'd taught Lily to help people, even when you had little. Especially then. What Claire didn't know was that the stranger under her roof, the man with haunted eyes and silent grief, was about to change her life. And hers, his. By morning, the snow had stopped, but the man, Matt, was still there, asleep under Lily's favorite cartoon blanket. Claire tiptoed through the small kitchen, pouring cereal and packing her daughter's tiny school bag. Lily rubbed her eyes and blinked. "Mommy, who's that?" "Just someone who needed help," Claire said gently. "He'll be gone soon." Matt stirred and slowly sat up. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to overstay. I really appreciate it." Most people would have slammed the door. Claire offered a tired smile. "I've had doors slammed in my face before. Didn't feel good." He looked around at the tiny apartment, the mismatched furniture, the handwritten calendar, the coupon book on the table. Then he looked at her. Not with pity. With something else. Respect. "I can call a tow truck," Claire offered. "There's a small shop nearby." Matt nodded. "I'll arrange it from my phone. Signal must be back now." She turned to make coffee, but Matt hesitated. "Claire, may I ask? You've got such a kind heart. What do you do?" She chuckled softly. "Right now? I do a bit of everything. Temp work. Deliveries. Cleaning. Whatever pays. I used to dream of being a counselor. Life had other plans." He nodded slowly, like he was memorizing her every word. After breakfast, he was gone. No name, no business card. Just a folded $100 bill left beneath Lily's crayon drawing of a rainbow with the words, "Be kind anyway." Claire stared at it, confused, grateful, and unsure if she'd ever see him again. She had no idea that Matt wasn't just some lost traveler. He was the incoming CEO of one of the biggest companies in the state. And he hadn't just seen kindness in her. He'd seen potential.
The first time it happened, it caught him completely off guard. The ferry horn groaned across the gray water as Ethan Cole, a tired CEO and single father, leaned against the railing, thinking about deadlines instead of the view. That's when a soft voice rose beside him. "Sir, can you lift me up to see the sky?" Ethan turned. A girl in a wheelchair looked up at him, no older than 10. Her jacket was thin, her hands folded carefully in her lap, her eyes bright with a hope that didn't ask for pity, only permission. He hesitated. Not because he didn't want to help, but because he was afraid of doing it wrong. Then he noticed her mother watching quietly, trusting him without saying a word. Ethan gently lifted the girl, holding her steady as the wind brushed her face. She laughed, pure, unguarded, staring at the endless blue above the water. "For a second," she whispered, "I feel taller than my problems." Something cracked open in his chest. Hours later, after the ferry docked, Ethan volunteered at a city shelter, where he often brought donated meals with his young son. As he set down boxes, a boy tugged his coat. "Sir," the boy said nervously, "can you help my dad see tomorrow?" The boy led him to a man slumped on a cot, defeated, ashamed, and cold. Ethan recognized the look. It was the same helplessness he'd seen in the girl's mother, the same fear he'd felt after losing his wife. That night, Ethan didn't just donate money. He made calls. He listened. He stayed. Weeks later, the girl sent him a drawing, a man lifting someone toward a wide, open sky. Ethan finally understood. Kindness doesn't change the world all at once. It changes one person's view, and that's where everything begins. Ethan couldn't forget either of them, the girl on the ferry or the boy at the shelter. Days passed, but their faces followed him into board meetings and quiet dinners with his son. For the first time in years, success felt oddly hollow. He had built companies, solved crises, and closed impossible deals, yet two simple questions had shaken him more than any headline ever had. Can you lift me up? Can you help my dad see tomorrow? The following Saturday, Ethan returned to the shelter, not with boxes, but with time. He sat beside the boy's father, Marcus, a former construction supervisor who had lost his job after an injury and everything else soon after. Marcus avoided eye contact, his voice tight with shame. "I don't need saving," Marcus muttered. "I'm not here to save you," Ethan replied softly. "I'm here to listen." That surprised them both. Across the city, the ferry girl, Lily, watched the water from her apartment window. She told her mother she didn't want to feel tall just once. She wanted to feel useful. Her mother smiled sadly, unsure how to answer. Back at the shelter, Ethan noticed the boy Noah, helping serve soup, carefully wiping spills before anyone asked. "He thinks if he's good enough," Marcus admitted quietly. "Life will notice." That night, Ethan made a decision that scared him more than any investment ever had. He offered Marcus a temporary job, remote planning work his company needed but never advertised. No favors. Fair pay. When Ethan told Noah, the boy didn't cheer. He just exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for months. Meanwhile, Ethan reached out to Lily's mother, not as a donor, but as a partner, asking if Lily wanted to help design an accessibility project for the ferry deck. 2 small invitations. 2 lives slowly lifting, just enough to see a wider sky. And Ethan began to realize, sometimes hope doesn't arrive as a miracle. It arrives as someone choosing not to walk away. The first day Marcus logged into work, his hands trembled. Not from fear of the job, but from the weight of being trusted again. Ethan noticed it during their video call. Marcus spoke carefully, overprepared, as if one mistake might send everything crashing down. Ethan didn't rush him. "Take your time," he said. "We're building this together." At the shelter, Noah watched his father sit a little straighter that evening. It wasn't joy yet, just dignity returning, inch by inch. For the first time in months, Noah slept without listening for hunger in the dark. Across the harbor, Lily rolled onto the ferry deck with a notebook balanced on her knees. Ethan knelt beside her as she pointed to railings that were too high, ramps too steep, benches too far apart. "I don't want special treatment," she said thoughtfully. "I just want everyone to see the sky, their own way." Her words stunned the room into silence. Engineers nodded. Crew members listened. For once, no one spoke over her. Weeks passed. The shelter gained structure, job referrals, childcare coordination, real follow-up. Ethan didn't announce it publicly. He didn't brand it. He showed up. Then came the setback. Marcus froze during a presentation, old doubts flooding back. Lily overheard someone whisper that accessibility changes were too expensive. Noah came home from school with a bruised pride after being called shelter kid. That night, all 3 nearly gave up, separate struggles, same exhaustion. Ethan sat alone in his car, staring at the windshield, rain blurring the city lights. He finally understood something painful. Kindness doesn't erase hardship. It only gives people the strength to face it again tomorrow. So he called Marcus, not to correct him, but to remind him of his worth. He emailed the ferry board, not with numbers, but with Lily's words. And he showed up at the shelter, not as a CEO, but as a father. Slowly, the ground steadied. Not because life became easy, but because none of them